Okay, my friends, you might say this is everything coming together in a flash. Well, I claim a flash created this image. And what was the flash? The flash was light. Light is what we want to ascend back to. Light has no weight whatsoever. None. Zero. White light is the brilliant light, basically electricity. It's the light, the bright light that you fill your batteries with. You gain no weight whatsoever when you fill a battery. No weight. But a ton of electricity and charge and energy, and that's exactly what caused this. And this 1823 blew my mind. All right, now don't forget, this goes back many, many, many years to like 1970. I said everything is made of atomic vapor. That means everything literally is made out of light, which is the black and white particles. And I have been saying right along now that 1,823 dipoles make up a proton. When the proton explodes, which a proton is basically what hydrogen is. When hydrogen explodes, it gives off just brilliant, radiant white light. Well, what's that? What's the cause of that? The cause is the white particles going out, and then the black particles following them. The only thing that has any weight whatsoever is the black particles. The white particles have no weight whatsoever. All they do is singe things, and that's precisely what happened. And 1823 means brilliant white light singeing a garment. Okay, so my number is 1823, and so what, Roger? What does the number mean? Well, I had no idea it meant anything other than the number of dipoles that are in a proton. So in other words, a proton is not one big ball like that. It's 1,823 dipoles. And when that explodes, it turns into complete, total, unbelievable light, and then the dark part follows it. So first of all comes the light, then the dark. And that's what happened with Jesus' body. All the light came out first, singed the cloth, and then the dark went on its way. I need help with this, my friends. I got this morning after doing the video about what I thought caused the impression on the likeness on the Shroud of Turin. And this came from Mike Barber, and he said, Roger, look at Strong's 1823. It means a gleam of flashing light. And I said, wow, that's interesting. So I said, I'll do a vid on it, which I am doing right now. All right, this is a number system ascribed to basically every word in the Bible, in the Old Testament and the New Testament, and they put a number ascribed to it. And 1823 is particularly interesting to me. All right, this is why this is so interesting. My claim is that this is what's called a dipole electron. All right? They call it a gluon. It has a positive and a negative side to it. The positive never changes. It's dark matter. It doesn't do anything other than have mass. The white particles, all the energy. And when they split apart, the white has just a brilliant amount of energy, and I'm sure it has well, I know it has a ton of heat. It will just vaporize anything that it hits, just like the shroud. The black just goes on and bounces and moves things away, but it doesn't burn anything. It just pushes things. Now, this is what the proton looks like, and this is why it's so important to me. This is the two particles that make up everything there is. There's nothing that isn't made of these two particles. It looks to me like we want to become that particle and ascend and become the brilliant white light. Is everywhere in the ancient text it says you want to ascend into the light and leave the dark behind. The dark is your material weight. This has no weight whatsoever, none, zero. All the weight you have is in the dark matter of your body. You want to leave that behind. And this is, look at here, 1,823 dipoles. Well, why is that so important, this 1823? Well, in Strong's Concordance, it means exactly what I'm saying. This is it right here, Strong's Concordance, 1823. It means to send forth lightning, to lighten, to flash out like lightning, to shine, to be radiant of garments. That's just too coincidental. I mean, come on. Think about it. Just let your mind roam into that realm. That's just not accidental. And there's a lot of other things that have come my way that have pointed me in this direction that you just can't dismiss if you start to think and you say there's just too much evidence added together with the giants, with the dragons, with all of the things about everything right up the line. And now this is just too much. Now, beyond that, there's the Old Testament and there's the New Testament. And this is that 1823 again. Now, I think from the Old Testament, it means likeness and similitude, which is the shroud, in the likeness of. Now, this is from the Old Testament, I believe. See, the Old Testament. Now, the 1823 that we're talking about is the flash. But they're talking about 1823 is a figure like, figures resembling. I just don't know what to think anymore. Okay, this is basically a very similar event. This is where the dark particles, you see the black particles, they push the white. And that's what happened. Jesus exploded basically into the light, and his body pushed his spirit into the spirit realm, which is these wide realms here, from this bodily tight realm. It pushed it into the heavenly realm. And that's basically what happened. And because it's so brilliant and bright and light, it singed the fibers as it came through. That's what's going on. When you... Okay, my friends, get ready. This is an atomic bomb blast. What you just saw is what is the equivalent of Jesus' body singeing the shroud. Singeing it. Watch what happens. It just singes it. That's the atomic bomb blast. All the white particles singed the shroud. I'm stopping it now. I just stopped it again. This is very, very slow motion. But that is only the white particles. You don't see anything moving at all. There's no mass. There's only energy, and Jesus' body apparently just shot that energy right up through that cloth, singed the fibers, and there's certain spots that are much more singed than others, just as you will see here. There's areas that get real black, and there's other areas that are not quite so black. The roof is getting just all singed right off. Now look, it's just vaporized. Boom. Now the black hits. The black didn't burn anything. The black has no energy to speak of other than movement. It's the heavy, heavy particle. It's the movement, and the white is the repose, but it burns. All right, so remember that again. Just be sure you understand. This is nothing but vaporizing, atomic vapor. Light is atomic vapor. And if you push it hard enough, and you make a tight enough ball of matter, when it explodes, the first thing to come away from it is all the white matter comes out, and that's what did this. And then inside the white matter is the dark matter. You see that? That's where the dark matter is. And the dark matter is all a bunch of balls too. It's not just one big ball. It's a whole, every one of these balls has another ball to it, which is the white ball. The white and black have one ball of each. And you take 1,823 of them in a big ball, you end up with a proton. All right? When you explode that proton, all the white goes first. They always will go first because the black is in the center. It's always going to be in the center. So always the light goes first and then the black goes. And the black burns nothing. The white is the thing that has the energy and burns things, just as I just showed you. Okay, my friends, I showed you it's 1823 means likeness, similitude. It also means brilliant, giving forth light, singeing garments, which is exactly what happened. And he said, after 3 days, I'm out of here. And that's what happened to that. I can't see any other reason for this. I did as much research as I could in a brief amount of time, but it doesn't take long to look to see what they have come up with, and there's no evidence whatsoever that there's any pigment or anything other than just the fibers themselves have actually turned dark literally from charring, it appears. I haven't touched it, and I haven't really seen it through the microscope or anything, but all I can tell you is what they did. And their claims are, and I agree with those claims, would create exactly what we see here from exactly the process of the white light coming, just sizzling through there and roasting the fibers. And because it's a thin garment, it wouldn't explode like it pushing a house down. The black would just pass through there without doing any damage whatsoever, I would think. Now, I became a little bitter about this whole thing over the course of 15 years. So I have been a little bit heavy on the vocal side. All right, so like I said, I've been a little heavy on vocal on this, but academia, now they know they're lying, and they're lying to the kids and taking their money and deceiving them, literally deceiving them at this point. And it's in an effort to discount God, to keep God out of the picture. And this was all written about. Let me just show you a quote about the prophecy that this would happen. And it is, and it has been happening for a long time. And they are just using the kids as a source of income. Now look at this, and I mean, there's a ton of verses about this, but this is pretty serious. This is 2 Peter 2. But there were false prophets also among the people. False prophets are saying things that are lies so that they can use the people. Even as there shall be false teachers among you, doing exactly the same thing. They shall bring in damnable heresies, like there's no God, there's no Jesus, don't bring that stuff in our classroom, we'll destroy your life. Even denying the Lord that bought them. Well, they deny that. You don't even want to talk about that around them. Which will bringing upon themselves swift destruction. All right. In another one, it says their destruction does not sleep. Many shall follow their pernicious ways, by reason of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of. And they speak evil of me. Trust me. I am evilly spoken of behind the poison ivy covered walls. Oh, did I say poison ivy? I mean ivy covered walls, where all the intelligent people are. Through their covetousness, there's very tricky ways. They will, with feigned words, fake stuff, make merchandise of you. They will use you for income. And then they'll tell you what you have to say. And if you don't say it, they will destroy your life. Their judgment now of a long time lingereth not, and their damnation slumbereth not. If they lie to you, and they know they are lying, they are in so much trouble they can't even imagine. And then it goes on to how God's cast all of the angels in hell that did this kind of stuff. And he saved righteous people. He saved the righteous people. They saw this stuff as just lies, and they were tempted by income and dominance and status, but they know they're lying. They're unclean. And it says they despise government. Well, government has become a problem. Government should have been the best leader doing the best for everyone. Totally different now. It's become a lust of uncleanness, and it's just terrible. Absolutely disgusting what's happened to the governments of the world. It's not just our government. I mean, I suppose there's some that are still benevolent of their population, but most of them have seen it as a way of enriching themselves and a power grab. That's all I see now. And the truth mattereth not. Anyway, it goes on. These natural brute beasts made to be taken and destroyed speak evil of things that they understand and not. They just don't understand the truth of our history. And they shall utterly perish in their own corruption. They shall receive the reward of unrighteousness. And they that count it pleasure to riot in the daytime, spots they are blemishes, sporting themselves with their own deceivings, while they feast with you and tell you, pay us $30,000 a year, and we'll give you a piece of paper that says you could repeat what we told you to say. We know it's not true. It doesn't matter. And I'm not kidding you. That's exactly the attitude. And they know this. It's not hidden either. You want to see? No, I shouldn't. Well, I'm going to show you. What the hell. All right, now, you know that I do the light experiments, and we found these two particles. This is from Fermilab. The same two particles, they react the same way. That is our material body, and that is our energy. The energy has no weight whatsoever. And here they are in light. All the particle colliders use huge things. They smash them, and they find just piles of trash. In other words, they take big balls like this. They think they're just solid like this. And when they smash them, they just break into little pieces. No, they're balls just like this with 1,823 particles, which is the magic number, and they hit together, and then they see balls like this. We don't. We see like this. We see the actual particles. So that, I'm not just talking off the cuff. I did all this stuff. I know this stuff for a very, very, very long time. And my original theory was that the transfer of energy is from light to atomic vapor. That's what energy is. All energy is from this atomic vapor. There is nothing but dipoles. Dipole molecular moments, dipoles. Everything's the dipole interaction. There's only two types, and they're both dipole interactions. There's polar and non-polar particles. All right, I did this as deep as anybody ever has, and I've never stopped. So, and I go into the chemistry and the thermodynamics, all the different bond, and it was all wrong. And my paper here, this was a paper that I shuffled around a lot, showing that it's just wrong. It's not right. Everything's made out of dipoles. The Bohr model's wrong because Rutherford's atom is wrong. It's all based on the Bohr model and these orbitals. Everything is made out of dipoles. That's what I intend to show, and let's take it a little further. All right, now, I showed you the thing about teachers, the false teachers. This guy's not a false teacher. He's being honest. But he's telling the students, we don't know what we're doing. I'm not kidding you. Wait till you hear what he has to say. Now, I took courses virtually everywhere, all kinds of colleges, on Coursera. You didn't have to pay for it. And I really went to find out what they had to say. Now, Professor Shankar, he's on the Yale courses here. I think he's got, I don't know, 20 different courses. I don't know. He's got all kinds of courses, but I know enough to know that I didn't need to go much further than all he had to do was say they don't understand anything. Well, here, let me show you what he has. The first words out of his mouth to his students, and this is why he's going to be okay. He's not a false teacher. He's just being honest. They don't know what they're doing. You know, the thing is, I like this guy. He's engaging. He's a nice guy. He's just regurgitating what he's been told to tell the kids. And that's exactly what he's telling the kids. He says, we don't know what we're doing. Just say what I say and you're going to be okay. Well, listen to this. This is Yale University. But like I say, he's okay. He's a good guy. He's just doing his job.
So this is a very exciting day for me, because today we're going to start quantum mechanics, and that's all we'll do till the end of the term. Now, I got bad news and good news. The bad news is that It's a subject that's kind of hard to follow intuitively. And the good news is that nobody can follow it intuitively. Richard Feynman, one of the big figures in physics, used to say no one understands quantum mechanics. So in some sense the pressure is off for you guys, because I don't get it and you don't get it and Feynman doesn't get it. The point is, here's my goal. Right now, I'm the only one who doesn't understand quantum mechanics. In about 7 days, all of you will be unable to understand quantum mechanics. Then you can go back and spread your ignorance everywhere else. That's the only legacy a teacher can want. So,
all right, this is why I say the teachers know they're wrong. I had this DNA test done it was 9 years ago. And there was 3 samples, and they did a fabulous job, very, very professional. And I extracted the blood. It was some of it was just like dusty red from the artery, and it's iron oxides, which is the blood. And I sent that to them. These 3 samples, I was very carefully done and not off the surface, it's deep inside and all that. And they did all of this different, whatever they do, there's elutions and all kinds of different, I don't know, primers and this and that. Well, I don't care about that, to be honest with you, because I said, are you 100% sure? And he said 100%. There was no negative contamination. They were very dense and heavy duty, excellent quality DNA sequences, the 36-inch tip and the lung. The hand, the fingertip was more turned to mud, but it was still okay. And here's what it came back: Homo sapien mitochondrial B loop, B gene, and D loop region. This is from the mitochondrial DNA. And they did the CTAG sample, all this stuff, to make sure that it was that sequence that represents the human mother's line, mitochondrial line. That's the way I understand it anyway. If somebody else has any different interpretation, well, let's talk. All right, so don't forget, these are the samples that they analyzed. It was the extraction from the 36-inch tip, I will show you, from the lung and from the mud tip. Now, here's what we got. This is the mud, that's a fingertip. And this is where the bone is. That's the tendon, one side. That's the tendon on the other side. You see the 2 different colors? That's because one side is vein blood, one side's artery blood. Totally different color scheme. One of them is normally red and one of them is black. And the artery stays fluid and runs out. Veins have clamps and they also harden up. Now, this is from a right-hand thumb. And I know that because of this big piece here hanging over the edge. That's the way thumbs do that. All the rest of your fingers are straightforward. And it was laying flat like this. So the bone didn't drift down. The bone is just naturally off to this side. Now, so this is a 2D CAT scan. They also did 3D CAT scans for me. I had 7 CAT scans done. Now, that was the bone, the fingertip that came off of this hand. And this is it came off of the other hand. I got all the parts are there, everything, all kinds of stuff. And this is a left hand. The other one was a right hand, I believe, unless it's superimposed or something. But anyway, this one here is a left hand. And the thumb goes that way. The little finger goes this way. Lay your hand back real hard, and you'll feel that tendon right there. You see it? Now, the other thing you want to look at here is the bumper pad, the cleave, right in between where your pads meet, right there. Then this silvery stuff is what's called grip skin. Grip skin is the rubbery coating that's all around your hands and your feet and your toes and all that. So it does the job, grip skin. And it peels right off. And my other fingertip, which I'll show you, is actually gigantic. The fingertip itself is that wide. I think this might be wider than 3 feet. I said this is a 3 feet wide hand. It could be wider, but I can't remember. This goes back 10 years, more than that, 15 years almost. And finally, I got so upset that I had the DNA test done. I had the CAT scans done. It just didn't make any difference. That's why I say they're false teachers. And I presented this to all of them, not just Yale, but Yale was about as bad as it gets. Now, that was the hand, and the fingertip came off of there, and that's the fingertip right there that I extracted the blood from. Now, this is the other fingertip that was here. Look at the size of this baby. That's 3 feet long. This is the actual fingernail. All right, take your time and look at this. All right, that's the actual fingernail. And this is skin, of course, and that's the skin around the edge. And I smacked that with a hammer to break this piece off so that I could get underneath to get some DNA, because I couldn't get it through. This was just really, really hard, like granite. There was no way to get it. And you really can't see any blood vessels. It was perfect. It was just like the skin on your hand. You don't see any blood vessels. This little circle here is the pad in between bones so that they don't scrub into each other. And then you got the vein and artery. Now this, like I say, I banged that and it popped right off, because that's grip skin. There's a layer that coats your fingers and your toes, and like I just said a minute ago, which is what peeled off of here. The same thing here, only this was on the fingertip. And it was on this fingertip right here, and it came off. And guess what? Your fingerprints are right here. So I would expect to find fingerprints if they're right there, and it's in this kind of condition. Well, guess what? They are there. And here it is. That's the fingerprints. That's one fingerprint ridge, just like this on yours, just same as yours. That's the sweat pores. See the sweat pores? This thickness right here is the thickness of this. It's thick. It's about that thick, and all it is skin. It's the skin that coats like your dense skin on your fingers, so that you don't get. It does work. Now right up here was where the fingernail was, and immediately your fingerprints start. So that's a pretty good sized creature. Now right down in here it was just saturated with blood. Fingertips and toes are what they call a terminus of your arteries and veins. It's the last places they end up going to, and then they turn around coming back. And they do it in other places in your body too. But for your extremities, that's the end of them, when they turn around and come back. So you got an artery going out, you got the vein coming back. You see, coming down, you see how it's got a split off here and a split off here and a split off here? This one services 2 fingers. So this one comes in, and let's say that's the artery. It's coming down, and the artery comes down, and the vein comes back. Artery comes down, the vein comes back. This would be the vein side. So you got vein and vein coming back together. You got artery and artery coming out. One comes out, one comes back. Think of it that way. But they bridge together. See them bridge together, bridge together, bridge together. It's very cool the way the system comes out. And then there's a certain number of holes on the side. There's 2 holes here, 2 holes on the end, and 2 holes over here. And I have them on all my fingertips. I can find them when you know what to look for. And they erode, right? There's just a ton of blood in those. And fingertips and toes, once they're saturated with blood, the blood is the preservative. I'm not kidding. The blood makes things preserve. Hearts, lungs, livers, toes, and fingers, they preserve fabulously. All right, this is the third one that was a little long, and it's this long right here. You see how flat that is? They all died in the Great Flood, and all the body tissue was boiled off, and what was left over was the body parts. Now look at how perfect that thing is. This is all the fabric that's on the lung that does this all day long. And the blood came, I drilled a hole in here somewhere and took blood out of there. and just sent it off. And that's, you know, you got to get in a little deep. You can't take it off the outside. This one here had actually blood bubbling out of these little red spots. And this is the alveoli. You see the little holes there? That's the lung alveoli. And this was these little red spots. A few of them had, not all of them, but a few of them had just little bubbles of blood coming out of them. You know, there was a number of them. There was quite a few, actually. And this was just completely sealed up. As you can see, it's totally sealed up. Now, this is, remember I told you that I had a fingertip? This was CAT scan. And that, remember the 2D? Hold on, let me get back. Ow, ah, I crushed my finger. Here's the 2D. All right, here it is right here. All right, I broke this piece off so I could look at the bone. And you can see the bone. I'm not going to take it apart again. But you can actually see the bone, the structure of the bone under here with the microscope. I broke this piece right here off. Now, that's this. Now, notice this cut here, right here. This is important for you to understand. You see that? That's where the tendons lock in on the side. Now, I have this hand, which we had at the palm I showed you before, in all kinds of types of decay. This finger was in pretty good shape. This is what I had CAT scanned, and there it is right there. Now, and the 3D, you really can't see much because it's so much transitioned into mud. Now, I had another fingertip from the same hand, and this is it right here. You say, oh, no, Roger, that's not a fingertip. I said, oh, yes, it is. And that right there is the pattern of a distal phalanges, which is the tip of your finger. And that is the vein side, and I know that for a fact. And that is the artery side, and I know that for a fact. And you say, well, Roger, how would you know that for a fact? And I say, because the artery side blew out. Arteries just flush right out. And that's why that hole's open. And right at the end, the hole flushes right out. Remember I showed you what the tips look like? Right here. There's two at the tips, two on the side, and two on the side here. These are the ones on the side. That's the one on the end. This is the artery coming up. The vein comes back and has the same architecture, but they clamp off. You see that one right there? That was a vein. Clamped off. That one didn't. That one there's got the red blood in it. This one here is right there, and this one here is right here, which is on the side. Now this is the distal phalanges, and that's why you see that black pattern there. It's hard to see, but it's there. A good doctor should be able to pick that up just like that. Now, what else did I show you before? I showed you the tendon attachment. Remember that little angle? There it is right here. This is extremely obviously eroded. It was originally this size. Originally it was that size. And it all eroded. And that right there is the same pattern as that right there. All right, so these are basically both fingertips. And this one is extremely eroded. However, it's not even as eroded as this one. Because this, my friends, is what's called an apical tuft. All right, and that sits inside the end of the fingertip. And if you look at the bottom of this, that's where it is right there. That's where the apical tuft is. You see these little straps coming out of there? That sits in there, and every one of those straps attached to a ball. And that held it. It was the tendon. It's the only ball that's left is this one. All the other balls are ripped out, and that sat on the very end right there of this hand. So there was all kinds of different degrees of degradation to this one particular hand. And I've got all kinds of stuff from this guy here. And I figured he'd be about 60 feet tall, something like that. The bigger one is much bigger. The other one was, I figured it got to be 180 feet tall at least. at least 36 inches this long. My finger is about 1 inch to the end, so it's 36 times bigger. You know, you got to go 150, 180 feet. And DNA tested, CAT scanned. You know, I couldn't CAT scan that, obviously, but this one, this was CAT scanned. The hand was CAT scanned. I have the DNA tests, and I have the chemistry. I understand the feldspar, the degradation from the phospholipids down to the aluminum silicates, fully understood, which was from the heavy aluminum silicates in the flood, which was when the earth was wrenched and all of the siliceous ooze came to the surface and bonded and created all the mud fossils. This is what freaked out academia. This is 10 years ago, well, much longer than that. And so this was 10 years ago. I had all my tests done. I had the DNA test done, I had the CAT scans done, I had the chemistry done, I had anatomy done, I had everything done. And then it was destroyed by people that didn't want to have anybody see this. And I'm still in that condition now. I have 200,000 plus, 204,000, something like that, people on subscribers, and I get maybe 1%. And they're always the same people coming back. So I know they must be searching me out, because everybody tells me I'm not getting the messages anymore. I don't get any notifications, or this or that. I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know. But even YouTube told me my channel is what they consider called non-responsive. I post every day, and this is pretty deadly stuff, man. If this doesn't turn you on, I don't know what your turn on is. All right, so I guess I'm just going to leave it at that for today. Why we lie: to keep our status, our position, to keep feeding off of the students in the case of academia. In this case, there's no other way to look at this. And the same thing with Fermilab and CERN and all the rest of them, these huge particle colliders. What they're looking for, I showed you. I showed you those particles. And to speak to me, to refuse to speak to me after the same particles they have, we're showing here, and showing we can split them, exactly what they want to do. And they still getting billions and billions of dollars every year to walk around in circles. This has been going on for many, many, many years. As a matter of fact, I just saw Lawrence Livermore saying, we've been studying this since 1980. And that's even the corona of the sun. They don't understand the corona of the sun. Now, all it is the particles that are trying to get out can't get out because it's scrubbing through all the other particles of space and heating the corona to millions of degrees, while the surface of the sun is only 10,000. They have no explanation for it, so they want to launch a big expedition to try to figure it out. They don't know why our temperature out in our ionosphere is 3,000 degrees either. No explanation for that. That's what's causing our global warming, is a scrubbing through space. Particles can't escape. They're being forced in. And the harder we pump atmosphere up, the harder we scrub. There's so much wrong right now that it's tragic. And the reason is because status, position, dominance, all the things that are not good. That's not good. When you're put in a position of teaching and you won't allow yourself to think, then they've designed a system called peer review that stops anybody from being able to speak. Like me, I can't speak. I can't publish. They won't allow me to publish anything. And so all I can do is put out my papers and so forth, which I put up on academia.edu. I got like 45 papers up, but people don't read them. You know, I get reads, but I actually get quite a few reads for academic papers. Because people just don't read them. Just nobody does. So nothing ever happens. And you only get a couple of hot shots on TV that are supposedly science communicators. They just say the same thing over and over and over. And they don't. This stuff here is out of bounds for them. Because if they start talking about it, they seem to vanish. So, hopefully you're getting something out of this, because I'm going to tell you right now, as far as I'm concerned, that was an act of God. Well, I guess I presented some pretty good evidence as far as I'm concerned to support the fact that a lot of these ancient texts that we just consider just insane and crazy, which they still are. I'm not saying they're not, but if they're true, they're true. And they appear to be true. So most of them that I can find substance for. Giants, dragons, even Jesus' burial cloth, light separating from darkness. You know, even they knew about these numbers and everything. I don't know how they knew about, or if it could possibly just an accident. 1823, flash out like lightning to shine, be radiant of garments. I mean, come on. Now that's the number of of particles that are in a proton, and when a proton explodes and the 1823 go on their own separate ways, that's when you get that radiant light and creating the image in the garment. And the other one was in the Old Testament, 1823, appears to have something to do with likeness or similitude. Or 1819, I don't know. Number 1823, this is a little confusing to me. But it says 1823 is likeness or similitude. Well, I don't know. And that's from the Old Testament. Likeness or similitude is that's the whole idea of the shroud, is the likeness and the similitude, and it's also the brightness and the radiance garment. That's just it's too much of a coincidence. And I also understand the different color, the different brilliances, and this is because of blood. That's blood has all the transition metals in it. They give off a lot more radiance than other particles when they get excited from these very energetic particles. Transition metals, which are in the blood primarily, well, basically almost all of them are in your blood, they really radiate out. And that's what you see here is from the crown of thorns. Now, all the other spots in his body, I believe they were washed. You know, I believe he was washed and scrubbed and everything, but you can still see all of those terrible, terrible, terrible scourge marks all over his body. And of course, the blood on his hands. I would imagine that would continue to seep out, and that's why you see it there, and you also saw it in the crown of thorns. You know, whether that was all wiped down or not before the shroud was put down, I don't know. Or it, I don't know. But I, as the light came through it, this would really illuminate compared to the rest. And here there is no, you know, it's all matter turning into the brightness. And you can see that it's just radiating outwards. Even out here, it appears to be, you can see the radiation. Now these appear just to be folds, I would assume, these lines going across. But it's pretty interesting. I would like to see what these little dots consist of compared to these. Now they say they were flecks of red ochre, and this was just iron oxide. Well, iron oxide is blood, as I have shown before, or I will show, or it's just iron oxide is blood, iron. That's what your red blood is, iron. Another coincidence, I get this morning from my friend Harold Peterson, end of the American dream. Life as you have known it will never be the same again. Science and the Bible just keep confirming one another. And yes, they do. And this has been pushed back against by the people that we're trusting to educate us. This is the problem. It's very distressing.